What's up, guys? It's me, JellyKnees, and the day's finally here. I finally done enough hyping of it. We're gonna get into the ability that's been teased. I mean, it was teased months and months and months ago, but we're getting into it now. And I'm gonna go over some different theories that I have had over the course that we've had this image, but then the final one that I really think we're going to land on, and some evidence as to why I think that could be it, more so than the others. But let's hop right into it. And the image we have here is the wheel, again, of the 6 myths. I didn't mention it very much in the previous video, but this myth right here, guys, is Owen. I do want to let you know that he has been canceled. We've never been told as to why necessarily, but he has been canceled, so he will not be in the pre-alpha or released at all unless something changes in the future and they uncancel him, for lack of a better way to put it. So, but this is just placeholder UI in general. These are not necessarily the myths that are involved with the ability. It was just kind of placeholder from, which is what they said when they released the image. But we have this wheel, and it could be any number of things. First kind of thought that somebody in the Discord had the other day is that it could be an item active of some kind. In thinking about it, I find it very hard to believe that this is kind of this would be a offensive item, but it very well could be a defensive item. If any of you play League, very similar to something like Knight's Vow, where you could select an ally to siphon damage from and help mitigate some of the damage that they're taking. I could very well see this item having a wheel like that, and that you're selecting which ally you want to choose. And maybe the highlighted one is either A, who you're looking at choosing, or B, who you are. And then you have to select from one of the other 5. So I think that that's a very interesting possibility. It's probably the lowest or the least likely of all the possibilities that I'm going to list. Because if I do remember correctly, I believe they mentioned that it was a hero ability. But for all we know, it could be an item active now. And it's just changed. It has been at least 6 months since we were able to see this teaser released. The second option that somebody came up with is that it could be an overseer ability, which is very interesting because we don't know about the overseers, so it very easily could be. But the ability that they kind of came up with, which I'm kind of now considering to be my headcanon for what the overseer ability is that you would look at the wheel and select one of the 6 enemy players and basically get to peer through their character's eyes and just see where they are on the map, if they're fighting the Ice Wyvern, Fire Wyvern, Atropos, or if they're just moving from lane to lane. You wouldn't get any mini-map or HUD or anything like that from looking from them. But if you knew the map well enough, you could use this ability to then gain some perspective on an enemy player of where they are and make some plans accordingly, then have it go on a cooldown and do it again so many minutes later. Could be very interesting, and I really kind of want to see that ability now, whether it be the Overseer's class ability or just a myth ability. I think that would be very cool, and can't wait to see if that actually becomes a thing, because that sounds like it would have a very high skill ceiling and really be useful to players that learn the map in and out, that they can just tell at a glance where they are on the map in order to gain the most information possible while leaving their body as exposed as little as possible. Could be a really cool idea. Again, I don't think it's very likely, but I think that that's a very cool idea in general that kind of was sprouted by this image of the ability. So now we're going to get into like specific myths and what I think they could have that would use this ability. First up, we're going to use malware as an example. Now, I was going through the voice lines and noticed that there are a couple voice lines for some of the myths that kind of stick out a little bit. Malware specifically talks about assimilation a lot, and this could very easily be some kind of ability, knowing that malware is a type of virus, where malware can select a person on the enemy team and either use their abilities by assimilating them, or he could be infecting them with like a damage over time from anywhere on the map, or which sounds crazy broken. Not, please don't do that, UG, if you're listening. But I feel like there are a lot of possibilities with assimilation as a theme that this wheel could be used for. Another myth that kind of has something that may be affected in a wheel like this is Marina. If you look here, she's got an ability called Ebb and Flow, or at least I think it's ability. Maybe it's a passive or something like that. And while the voice lines don't give anything away, she's clearly using it on somebody, in theory, an ally. So it's entirely possible that Marina would have this wheel come up for something that she gives them more movement speed in water, or just more movement speed overall, or she gives them some kind of buff over a certain amount of time that she can just give them from wherever she is on the map. Maybe it's part of the Ethereal path that Marina can use, or any cleric for that matter. I feel like there's a lot of potential there as well for an ability to be used. I'm actually just thinking about it now. The Ethereal paths one of them could have an ability that uses that wheel, and you select an ally or an enemy to cast a boon or curse on, depending on which side it's on. Something I didn't think about till just now is that it could be the Ethereal paths. But I still don't think this is quite as likely as some of the ones we're going to talk about right now. Malaia. The interesting thing about Malaia is she could very easily have some kind of Hunter's Mark-esque type ability. That she selects an enemy and gets some kind of buff from them when she kills them. Very similar to Kindred in League of Legends, but also because her theme is that she is a Huntress, maybe she gets, I mean, there could be any number of possibilities with that if she kills certain people, she gains more movement speed, attack speed, whatever it is, or kind of like a cross between Kindred's Mark and Rengar's passive of gaining stats when you kill people, as long as she's doing it in the order that she selected. Could very well be a possibility for Malaia that also kind of fits her theme at the same time. The last one that I think is fairly likely as well, and kind of my second up from, or my second choice to what I think the most likely option is Nicholai. He's specifically in his voice lines has a line that says, "Okay, up we go," and then "let's duet on ally." So again, it's some kind of cast on an ally. And "up we go" implies, 100 things. But the fact that he's casting it on an ally means that it could be something Nicholai is doing in tandem with them, that the two characters are now buffed with each other, they're tethered or anything like that. That could be a huge indicator of this wheel being used at the same time. He's selecting one ally to tether to, or two allies that he tethers together that they duet instead of him and somebody else. Could be very interesting. And I see that there's a lot of potential there with Nicholai specifically, and having a musical background of tying two things together or selecting somebody else to gain something from his music. Could be a very interesting thing that also uses that wheel. The one that I think is absolutely most likely, with a bunch of evidence supporting it, is kind of the one that you guys all thought, and what I've now believed, is that the Marksman ability is likely to be what this image is for. And there's a little bit of evidence to help support this theory as well. First off, even though it's placeholder UI, Dante is on it. Dante is a marksman. Entirely possible that it could be Dante using this. But most likely it's the enemy team being the marksman ability. So it could be any 6 myths, really. The next thing is that the icon here in the center, if you zoom in on it, it shares a striking resemblance to the marksman class icon. If you really look at the outside here, they've got the very, very similar silhouettes in their build structure. And they kind of have the 4 points going in each direction, similar to the outside of this. The eyes in the center very reminiscent of Marksman. I mean, that they're looking down the scope, they're targeting any number of things, but very reminiscent of that. So I think absolutely this has to be the Marksman ability, because this is the similarities here would have to be quite the coincidence in order for it not to be the Marksman ability. So if we consider that this is the Marksman ability, and we do know about 2 Marksmen, which one do we think is in this image? Because there's been crossed out on the bottom left here. So if we zoom in on this, and I've done this in Photoshop several times, tried to recreate this image pixel by pixel, and really what we find out here is that there's either something red or purple underneath this image, myth-wise. And while it very well could be a skin, and it very well could also be a myth we don't know about, which is why it's been scribbled out, I think the fact that it's a red or purple color under there even more so signifies that it's probably a Marksman, considering that the 2 Marksmen we know about are red and kind of a purple color, purple pink-ish. Absolutely, these 2 could, either of them could be underneath that wheel and using their Marksman ability to target somebody else. The other thing I noticed by looking at this image is that this, to me, doesn't look like the bases that we saw in the in the map images that UG gave in their blog post. So if this isn't in base, in theory, that means that this ability is castable multiple times, because the first time you do it, you'd probably do it in base as you're heading to the lane. And then from there, you might be able to use it again on somebody different when you kill that target and deal the damage or whatever it may be. So very likely there that I think this is used multiple times. The Marksman ability, for the reasons we said, between the symbol and the color similarity between the 2 Marksmen that we do know, I think that this has to be the Marksman ability, no doubt about it. And you all pretty much are right on the same track with me there as well. But guys, that's going to call it for this one. I appreciate you guys watching through the end of the video. If you enjoy this content, hit subscribe, hit the like button. And if you want to see more videos, the end card is going to have a video that is a playlist of all the Ethereal content I've made so far, and a video that will be recommended for you by YouTube. Hopefully we're going to get more news from the Ethereal team very soon. I know we've got fun facts coming out today and a blog post, and hopefully that gives us a ton more insight, and fingers crossed that it might be the Kickstarter. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but thank you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.